Why do we argue? Why do we dig in, even when we feel ourselves drifting away from someone we love? Why do we say things that don't reflect our truest selves, just to win a moment we'll regret later? What are we actually trying to protect? Because under so many of our reactions, defenses, and emotional spirals is the simple primal need to be right. And that need is one of the deepest, most misunderstood roots of human conflict, not just between people, but within ourselves. We like to think of conflict as something that happens out there, but most of it starts inside. The moment you feel misunderstood, the moment your version of reality is questioned, the moment someone else's truth bumps into yours and suddenly you're not having a conversation, you're defending your existence. That's the real hook. Being right isn't just about facts. It's about identity. The ego doesn't care about truth. It cares about continuity, about control, about keeping the self intact. It seeks identity, something solid to hold on to in a world that constantly changes. And honestly, nothing gives that illusion of solidity like the belief, I'm right, they're wrong. To be right means I know who I am. I'm valid, I'm not the one to blame, and maybe most importantly, I'm safe. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us confuse being right with being safe. We grew up learning that being wrong meant being punished, being shamed, being small. So our brains started associating right with worthiness and wrong with danger. This goes deep, not just intellectually, but emotionally, somatically. Even when no one's actually threatening us, we brace like they are, because something inside us believes we won't survive being wrong, and that's why we interrupt. That's why we raise our voices. That's why we fight harder the more cornered we feel, not because we care about the topic, but because we care about staying whole. But let's look at the cost of that. When the need to be right takes over, something shifts. We stop listening, we stop connecting, we stop learning. Sometimes conversations become, well, contests. Relationships turn into battlegrounds, and inner peace, it doesn't even get a seat at the table. We fight to be right, even if it means being alone, even if it means being angry, even if it means being, miserable. We hold on to grudges, not because they help us, but because, honestly, they help us feel justified. We walk away from people who love us because we need the last word, and we stay in situations that hurt us because we just can't admit we made a mistake. Being right becomes more important than being happy, and even when we win, it's, well, hollow. Because you can win an argument and still lose the connection. You can prove your point and still feel alone. You can be right and still feel completely wrong inside. And here's where it gets even deeper. The need to be right doesn't just damage our relationships with others. It fragments our relationship with ourselves. Think about how often we silence our own intuition just to protect a belief. How many times we push away discomfort instead of asking, what is this really about? How often we repeat the same patterns, not because they work, but because they're familiar, because they reinforce the version of ourselves we're scared to outgrow. This is internal conflict, the kind that doesn't yell or fight, the kind that keeps you up at night, that whispers, why am I like this, that tugs at you after the conversation's over when you replay what you said and know it wasn't the whole truth. The ego wants to be right, but your deeper self wants to be free. And those two voices are not always on the same team.